So guys, if you have the money, make sure you go ahead and get this. Support Dragon Ball fan-made projects like this, because this is truly something special.
Know your place, worm. Prepare yourself. Damn Saiyan.
I'm going to be telling you guys the gist of this story, mainly because I would highly recommend for you guys, if you do have the money, to go ahead and buy this book, The Time I Was Reincarnated as Yamcha. And I think it's imperative for you guys, if you love fan mangas, to buy it, because it shows Shueisha, it shows Toei, it shows all those who love Dragon Ball that if this book gets a high level of sales, then it shows how much we love the fan manga series. And there are other fan mangas that have physical copies, but I'm telling you, this one is only 10 bucks, and I bought it at Barnes & Noble. So you can either buy it at your local Barnes & Noble or look at it at Amazon. And I have not been sponsored by Shueisha or Toei to talk about this. I just really like this book, and there are a lot of intricate jokes and details that you would love for those of you guys who collect Dragon Ball fan mangas or just manga in general. Now, this story is probably the thirstiest Dragon Ball story that I've heard in quite some time, and that is the story of this guy, this kid, coming from school, and he is obsessed with Dragon Ball. He loves Dragon Ball and he loves girls, and those two things are the ones that are driving him throughout the entire story. So much so that, a little creepy, he actually ends up seeing a really cute girl walking down the street and decides to chase after her to see what her mini skirt looks like closer. And honestly, the story went on from here. This guy loving Dragon Ball with his friend, and we kind of saw a manga around these guys through high school. It would be the Dragon Ball equivalent of Superbad. So he runs after this girl down these stairs, which I highly do not recommend. It is extremely creepy and just shows you have no game and are desperate. But he does it anyway, trips over the stairs, falls on the stairs, and seemingly dies. And that is where he wakes up in the Dragon Ball verse as Yamcha. And this is Yamcha during Dragon Ball at a pivotal moment where Goku is going to go off to train with Master Roshi, and Bulma and Yamcha and Oolong are about to go to West City to hang out, I guess, is the gist of what they're going to be doing in there. And once he wakes up, of course, he's in shock that he's Yamcha. But the first thing he sees is Bulma, and he recognizes her immediately, and he falls in love with her, love at first sight. Now this I can understand, because just so you know a little bit more about me, the woman that I married, well, back then she was a girl, the girl that I married, that was love at first sight for me. I fell in love with her as soon as I saw her, and we've been married for 8 years in like 2 weeks. I know. All of you guys who thought I was real young, maybe in high school, I'm actually in my late 20s. So the kid realizes that he actually hooks up with Bulma because they are essentially going to be dating here in a little bit. At least that's how the Dragon Ball story goes. And this kid couldn't be more excited for that fact. He's ready to go to West City with Oolong and Bulma, similar to how the story went in Dragon Ball. But then he remembers what happens to Yamcha. He dies when the Saiyans arrive on Earth. And so he wants to change his fate and change the fate of Yamcha. So he decides instead to go off with Goku and train with him. And I'm assuming Krillin's also going to be in the mix, but he goes and trains with them. And then we get a time skip to when the Saiyans arrive, and Yamcha is the main one facing all of them, and he takes out the Cybermen with ease. At this point is where we find out that right before the Saiyans came, he didn't think he had enough strength to still beat them or face whatever threats came with them. So he decided to ask Kami to bring him to the old Namekian ship the one that they used in the Saiyan Saga to go to Namek, or after the Saiyan Saga. And he goes to Namek and asks Guru to draw out all his latent abilities, all his hidden power, which he did to Gohan and Krillin. Does it to Yamcha, then Yamcha trains with Nail for a certain amount of time, up until he realizes that the Saiyans actually are coming earlier than expected. So Guru actually makes an exception and uses the Dragon Balls to wish him back to Earth so he can get there in the fight just in time. Yamcha dispatches Nappa and ends up fighting Vegeta with Goku. The fight is fierce, and just the level of detail in the battle damage, the fighting techniques, the moves, the way the panels look, very similar to how they looked in the original Dragon Ball manga. And so I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate battle damage. You guys know I love battle damage, and that's the one thing I loved about the Saiyan Saga, that there was a ton of it. And Yamcha has an idea. He's gonna create an opening with Vegeta long enough for Goku to Kamehameha him and end his life. And so he fights one-on-one with Vegeta, yelling at Vegeta, "You're not gonna take my Bulma away from me." And Vegeta's like, "Who the hell is Bulma?" like during the fight. And Yamcha starts thinking about how ridiculous Vegeta looked when he was dancing in the Battle of Gods movie. And this is where we get to my favorite panel in this entire fan manga, and that is Yamcha screaming, "Hey look, it's the God of Destruction, Beerus, behind you." And Vegeta turning around, freaked out like everybody else does throughout Dragon Ball Super. It's a great way, fantastic way, connecting Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Z, the Saiyan Saga, all the way back in the beginning. This was really, really well done. And Vegeta turns around just like expected. He remembers Beerus, so does Frieza. A lot of these characters had already met Beerus up to that point. He just forgot about him years later until he remembered him again in Dragon Ball Super. And that creates the opening where Goku blasts him with the Kamehameha. And unfortunately, this does not kill Vegeta. He actually ends up escaping. And I really do like this part. This was another contender for the best panel because I liked the way that he changed his mind. The other panel was great at connecting Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Z. That's why I loved it. This one is great because it's great storytelling. Now, Yamcha, or this kid reincarnated as Yamcha, he is a huge Dragon Ball fanboy. And again, he knows a lot about Dragon Ball. And as a true fan, he started realizing that if he blasted the spaceship out of the sky and killed Vegeta, because at that point he probably had enough strength and Vegeta lacked enough strength to survive the blast, he started thinking about all the moments of Vegeta greatness that we would not get. No Trunks, no Vegeta finally acting fatherly toward Trunks, and no Majin Vegeta blowing himself up. Probably that moment alone would have been enough for any Dragon Ball fan to realize that, yeah, I can't kill Vegeta just because I want to get with Bulma. I cannot steal Bulma away from Vegeta this way, or any way at all, really. No matter how much he fell in love with Bulma, he realized this is pure Dragon Ball. This is the purest extent of Dragon Ball. This is so vital to the Dragon Ball story that he could not change this, and he decides to let Vegeta live. This was great, guys. This, honestly, you know what? I changed my mind. Sorry. You were funny and a great way to connect both arcs, both sagas, Super and Z, but you have won the best panel award for this video. You're amazing. Thank you so much for this. So at the end of this story, we get some indication that there is actually another fanboy reincarnated as one of the Dragon Ball Z characters, and so we skip to the Cell arc. Yamcha misses it because he's not going to be able to fight anyway, and he knows that the Cell arc, that's Gohan's story. This is years later. So he actually confronts the other fanboy that was reincarnated as a Dragon Ball character, and to all our surprise, it was Chaozu. And unfortunately, Chaozu is now evil. This guy decided that if he cannot survive as Chaozu by being Chaozu, he's going to be better than Chaozu. He's going to be evil and rule the world with his Dragon Ball knowledge and his psychic abilities that Chaozu has. Of course, Yamcha won't let it happen, and they end up duking it out, where even Chaozu gets the upper hand and nearly kills Yamcha up until he uses the Senzu Bean that he had gotten earlier, because They are fanboys, and he obviously needed senzu beans for this matchup. And then the fighting continues up until it's looking grim for Yamcha again, and he ends up tricking the Chaozu player by asking him when is Yamcha's birthday, and that is when he beats him. After that, he pulls out the Mafuba jar and performs a Mafuba on this kid. But before the Mafuba is complete, Chaozu says something that reminds Yamcha that he is still a kid and that he is a huge Dragon Ball fanboy, and apparently this was a top player for Dokkan Battle. And after that, he stops the Mafuba and they sort of hash things out over their love for Dokkan Battle. And after this, we find out that the entire story was a board game between Beerus and Champa called the Reincarnation Game. And the souls of these two characters, after this epic climax, go back to their real world selves. And actually, at the end, of course, you gotta get a little bit of that fan service in there. He ends up waving at the girl that was walking away, the one he was chasing at, and the pure gust of wind, the energy that comes off his hand, almost blows the girl away. And that is our hint that he may still have some connection to Yamcha's strength. I just gotta tell you guys, buy this. For me, it was only 10 bucks. This deserves a spot in your collection.
So I couldn't really find this online to show you guys, but in the book there's 2 extra little stories at the end of it. One of which is where Yamcha decides to clean himself up and he wants to go and basically confess his love for Bulma to Bulma. And this is right around after Namek, when Vegeta's already living at Capsule Corp. So he ends up fighting some bad guys here, doing the whole superhero thing. He even gets a fangirl right here. She's like, I'll go on a date with you, don't worry, I'll take care of you. But Yamcha, at least this guy's version of Yamcha, he's only into Bulma. And so he goes to Capsule Corp and he meets up with Bulma's never-aging mother, and she's like, oh, well, are you here to invite me on a date? And now he's like, no, I'm here to talk to your daughter. And so she tells him that she's in or near the gravity chamber, and that's when he kind of walks in on this moment between Vegeta and Bulma, where Bulma's trying to be sweet and obviously thirsting for Vegeta, and Vegeta being an asshole and being oblivious. And so what he decides to do is probably the dumbest thing that Yamcha has ever tried to do, is challenge Vegeta himself. He's like, if you're gonna have Bulma, you're gonna have to take her from me. And Vegeta has no idea what he's talking about, but with Yamcha attacking him, and Vegeta looks like he's kind of wore out too from the workout that he just had. With Yamcha attacking him, this is sort of what happens at the end, and that's basically it. And then it kind of cuts to the real world where the real guy is dreaming over Bulma. And then his friend's like, you're falling for a 2D character? That's not cool, dude. And he's like, that's not what I meant. I guess he's thirsting over Bulma, and this guy doesn't know our fandom, but, we all thirst for 2D characters from time to time. And then after that, we just get kind of this fusion story between Chaozu and Yamcha. They end up using the fusion technique, using these armbands that are made by Bulma from one of the video games, so they can fuse together without having to be the same relative power or size. And we get this monstrosity, and that is the end of their fusion, because they're like, nah, we're not doing this anymore, because look at that face. Disgusting. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. This is going to be BlackScape signing off. Take care, guys.